What's up, dudes? Okay, so the new line of Revive Skateboards is out. You can get it now, theshredquarters.com. There's a link in the description below. I'm so crazy excited about this line of skateboards. I had so much fun working with Andy and Brian designing these things. I'm just really proud, really excited, so definitely check it out. And I want to spend the time in this video showing you guys a little bit of how I made one of the boards, the Brian Ames Supervillain Beard skate deck. But first, before we get into that, I have a big announcement. JC, my wife, and I decided that we are going to be moving from Minneapolis to Cincinnati. You know, I love working with Andy and Brian at Revive, and we've got Pancake Attack going, and I just can't wait to work more with those dudes. And there's tons of other reasons why Cincinnati makes sense for us, but it's going to be a big change. We don't know when exactly we're moving, but sometime this summer. I'm really excited. I can't wait to bring you guys along on the move, and hopefully there'll be a ton of new cool stuff to see in Cincinnati. Let's jump into Photoshop and talk about this skateboard. Supervillain Brian Ames, the Beard. Alright, so jumping into Photoshop. What you saw there at the beginning was the thumbnail, or like the quick sketch. That's basically what I send to Andy and Brian to get approval on the idea and just sort of hint at the layout. It's a way for me to figure out how, you know, just to get an idea of what the graphic's going to look like. So now this step that you're watching is me. I've skipped over, I didn't record the, what I call penciling phase, so the gray sort of artwork underneath the thick black outlines. I didn't record that. If you want to see an example of that sort of stage of the process, a little link to my last video where I did a Mario and Bowser t-shirt design is popping up in the corner, and check that out because there's a lot of cool information about sketching, penciling, all that stuff. Okay, but right here we are working in Photoshop. I'm using just a really simple, you know, black brush. It's chiseled a little bit, so it's kind of like on an angle. And really what I'm trying to do is channel that, you know, Jack Kirby classic comic book style artwork. So I'm approaching this whole design from the same way. I mean, I'm doing everything on the computer, but I'm approaching it the same way that people used to, and I guess, and still do, make comic books. So, you know, typically someone would pencil the design, that's the gray layer underneath, and then that person or somebody else would then ink the comic, and they would use a brush or a pen nib and, you know, go over with thick black lines, and really the whole process for making comics is so they're easily reproducible, and while the skateboards are printed and manufactured quite a bit different than comics are, you know, I just wanted to sort of keep the process going, or keep that process of working like a traditional superhero comic book, and sort of give the whole design that feel. So I did that with all of the pro decks and this Supervillain Brian design, and yeah, really just to make it feel comic booky, right? Okay, I guess I should also say that this whole design, everything that you're watching, took about a little less than 3 hours, so not including the thumbnail and the penciling stage, but what you're watching took about 3 hours. It's super sped up, of course, and yeah. And right, so this whole thing is, I kind of already have the layout and the design of the board figured out, and now I'm just, you know, making it look just right with the final inks, or, you know, like finishing the artwork basically. The tricky thing about skateboards is their size. You know, having a very narrow and tall design is really kind of tricky. It's a tricky thing to get the layout just right, and what makes it really difficult is the sort of dead space. The space underneath each truck kind of like disappears. So on all of these designs, I tried really hard to make sure that nothing underneath where the trucks and the wheels go on the board is super important. So actually on this design, there's a little bit of dead space above Brian's hat and in between the letters and stuff that you'll see later, and then, you know, in between his hands and where the other superheroes, the other pro superheroes, their hands sort of coming out of the flames. I don't know, yeah, that's kind of a cool little Easter egg, is that the three hands coming up there are supposed to be the other heroes. So, okay, so here we are jumping into colors, and this is, it takes me a little bit to figure out this part, how I want to color Brian's face and everything, but really what I want to talk about is how skateboards are printed. So sort of like screen printing a t-shirt or something. For my process, I approach it the same way as if I were screen printing a t-shirt, but the actual printing process is different. So Revive Skateboards, we use a manufacturer that does a heat transfer. So basically all the artwork gets slapped on this crazy paper and then rolled through a very hot press, and that's how the artwork is sealed onto the board. It's similar to screen printing in that you have to have very distinct colors. So in this Photoshop file, if you look in the bottom right, you can see that each color has its own layer, and I'm keeping everything very separate except for the gradients, which yeah, you know, now that I think about it, it would be really cool to someday see, go and like see how they do the printing. I hope that can happen someday, and if I ever do get to go see where we get the skateboards made, I'll definitely bring you guys along. But okay, yeah, sorry, I got a little distracted there. So yeah, really I'm just keeping all the colors very separate, and that is going to help me bring it into Illustrator for this next part, which is where you know, I really finish the board and get everything ready to be made into the heat transfer and printed onto the boards. So that about wraps it up for Photoshop. This next part, okay, let's pause for a second. So this next part gets a little bit confusing, and if it's too confusing even after I explain it here, definitely put a comment below asking me any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer and help figure stuff out, right? So going from Photoshop into Illustrator, I'm going to take each of those color layers and I'm going to bring them into Illustrator and just live trace them and sort of reassemble the layers in the Illustrator file. So I'm making each of the layers in Photoshop a flat black, copying and pasting into Illustrator, and then live tracing. I came up with a preset for myself, but you can just go to Window and then I keep saying live trace, that's what it used to be called, now it's called image trace. So you can do Window, image trace, and then play with the settings, get something that you like. Yeah, basically it turns everything that I had drawn in Photoshop, which is a raster based file, it's pixels. When I bring it into Illustrator, image tracing it changes it into a vector file, which is basically just math and numbers that determine how the artwork looks. It's kind of complicated. If this is something you guys are interested in, leave a comment and maybe I can do a whole video talking about this process. And actually, now that I think about it, maybe there is a much easier way for this process to happen, and if you guys know of a easy, quick way to get separated layers from Photoshop into Illustrator, definitely leave a comment below because I would love to hear about that. Okay, let's jump back into Illustrator now. Okay, so we're pasting each of the layers into Illustrator, live tracing them, and then we're gonna put everything back together. We're gonna make sure each one of the live trace pieces has the right color, and then I'm going to be playing around a little bit with some of the colors, making the gradients a little different so those hands at the bottom stand out a lot more. And really this is like the last part of the drawing. You know, getting everything like looking just right and making sure it all fits into the template is what this part in Illustrator is for. So this last little bit, just the last part of the design, is fixing up the type. You know, I used a couple of different fonts, which is kind of a very typical superhero comic book thing, is to have a bunch of different fonts going on, or a bunch of different typefaces or whatever. And for each of the pro boards and then this supervillain Beard Brian board, I made sure each of the sort of titles of the comic books had their own piece of custom type. So here I'm just playing with Beard. I'm using it's Object Distort Transform and then Roughen to sort of give the edges of these letters a little bit of texture and making them look a little more evil. And then I'm just putting a drop shadow behind it to sort of make sure it pops out, you know. I tried to like make everything in these designs look real superhero-y, right? So everything from the colors to the type to the illustration, all just superheroed out. And yeah, I'm really happy with how these turned out. I definitely go check out theshredquarters.com and look at all this stuff. You know, there's t-shirts and all kinds of good stuff too, not just boards. So yeah, I hope this was informational. I hope you guys liked watching this stuff. Definitely leave a comment below and let me know what you guys think. I'm always happy to answer questions, and if you want to see more process stuff. This is really wrapping up. The last little bit I'm doing, it's really just making sure that everything fits just right and is centered within the board template. You know, nothing's getting cut off too badly or anything. And really, that's it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for all the comments and everything. I can't wait to go on this new adventure, moving to Cincinnati, you know, working even more with Revive and those guys, and building Pancake Attack and all this stuff. It's gonna be awesome. So thank you guys so much for coming along on this adventure with me and checking out this video about how I made this skateboard. And yeah, you guys are awesome. So right on. Alright dudes, that's it. Time to go play some more Zelda. Hope you have an awesome productive week, and I'll catch you later.